Hi, I'm Kel-Tec Lover, and I'm still working on this this Glock 30 SF. And in previous videos, I went ahead and showed you how to change out the floor plates on the magazines and to stipple those to match, as well as showing you how to white out the letters on your Glock. I also showed you how to install a pocket clip on these, and this was the universal stick-on pocket clip. I also showed you how to install a longer takedown lever so that it'll make field stripping easier. In this video, I'm going to show you how to do a trigger job on your Glock. It's relatively simple and it'll make a big difference. I'm not changing out any springs or anything else. All I'm going to be doing is going to be polishing parts. And I have a customized slide plate that I'm going to replace, since I'm going to go ahead and take this slide apart and do the trigger job on that. And the slide plate is actually going to be made out of anodized aluminum to replace the plastic one. And of course, before you do any trigger job, it's a good idea to go ahead and do a baseline trigger pull test to see what the trigger is actually breaking out before you do the job. And I went ahead and locked this Glock up in this vise. I've got wooden jaws on here, so I'm not going to damage the slide. Go ahead and reset the trigger. And then I've got my lineman trigger pull gauge here, and I'm going to go ahead and see what this factory trigger is set at. The factory on these things are supposed to be about 5.5 pounds, so we're going to see where this one breaks. Get it in there. That one broke at 6.8 pounds. 6 pounds, 8.5 ounces. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to reset it. And I'm going to do a couple more of them. This will give us a good baseline. Need to break the gun down in order to get into the internals. Now, I've already checked this weapon to make sure that it's safe. We're going to go ahead and drop the magazine out of it. And you're going to go ahead and rack the slide back, of course, to make sure that there's nothing in the weapon. Then, in order to break it down, you're going to go ahead and you're going to pull the trigger. Then you're going to, I like to grasp it right here and pull back on the slide slightly. You'll be able to pull this takedown lever and then release it, and then the slide assembly will come off in 2 pieces. And since we're not going to be working on the lower half here immediately, I'm going to go ahead and set the magazine out of frame here and also the frame, because all we're going to be dealing with is going to be the frame, the slide assembly itself. Now, the key points that you're going to be polishing on here is this area right here on the striker, and you're also going to polish this firing pin safety block right here. You need to make those nice and smooth. Of course, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and remove this spring and go ahead and pull the barrel out, and that's the point that you're going to start. You're going to need to take a small screwdriver. And if you'll notice, you've got a little plastic sleeve right here that you need to be able to depress. Push this little plastic sleeve in. I'm going to see if I can do this in one fell swoop. You ease that plastic spring in, and then you can move this plate up. And once the plate starts to move, you see where it's at? You've got another spring underneath here that you want to make sure that you depress so that and block it with your finger until you can get it free. And there is the slide plate. Once you remove your plate, you can then remove your firing pin and spring assembly as one assembly, set it aside. And then you've also got a little spring right here and a little plunger. This is your extractor spring that actuates your extractor. Once your extractor spring is removed, you can then depress your safety block here, and you'll see that the extractor kind of gets a little loose, and then you can just kind of pull it out. There you go. Comes out just like that. We're going to set that right here. And then your safety block plunger comes out. And we're going to set all these pieces right here. Now your slide is stripped, and that's all the further you need to take it. We're not going to take the pocket clip back off. While I've got you in frame here, I also want you to take a real close look. You see how that adhesive tape seals down in the ridges here on that pocket clip? That's what I was talking about a few days ago. This has had time to set up nice and strong so that it ain't coming off. And yet, when you get ready to pull it off, you can actually pry it off, and the tape comes right off. It's a breeze. going to use a white paper towel here so that you guys can pick up on these black pieces on this black mat here. The two items that we're going to be concerning ourselves with is going to be the firing pin assembly and the plunger. Now, where you're going to be working on this is right here on this firing pin assembly. You've got a disconnector. You want to try to polish that area up as shiny as you can possibly get it. And again, I use my old trusted favorite, and that's Miracle Polishing Cloths, and maybe a real fine sharpening stone. Another area is going to be this area right here, where it's going to get real smooth right there. That's kind of a rough, jagged area if you run your finger over it. I want a real nice, smooth transition. You can also take the firing pin out of its little holder. All you do is carefully compress this spring, and then top of that spring has got little keepers on it, just like a valve spring holder in a Chevy car. And you can go ahead and pull that apart, and then it slides off, and that way it exposes the firing pin by itself. And we'll probably go ahead and do some polishing on the whole thing. That way it'll have a nice smooth transition. And of course, the first place that you're going to want to polish is going to be this area right here. You want that area right there to be nice and smooth. So what happens is you've got a striker inside the lower half here. You can see this part here that comes riding back right here. That part there actually comes in contact with the striker like this. And as you pull the trigger and it comes back, this comes back so far until it drops down. And if you make that part nice and smooth, the transition will be nice and smooth. Therefore, you'll have a nice smooth trigger. Of course, I wrap some 400 grit sandpaper here. Just use this method here. Give it a few strokes. And again, what we're trying to accomplish is a mirror-like shine, because the shinier this thing is, the smoother it is, and make for a real smooth trigger. Now I'm just going to go over it with this went over it with this fine stone and then some 400 grit sandpaper, using the same method that I'm doing right here, and I'm polishing this firing pin up. Alright, and after just a little bit of work with this polishing cloth, there you go. See, all I done was use a polishing cloth on that to kind of polish that up and give it a little luster. Now right here, I went ahead and carefully ground that, or very, very carefully sanded that until I was able to get a real smooth finish, and then went ahead and finished it up by polishing it. You can see just how shiny that part is. That's what we're looking for. And of course, now we can go ahead and reassemble this firing pin. You're going to take your plastic sleeve, slide it up over that, take your spring. This might get a little bit tricky right here, because what you're going to need to do is keep it right here and pull this spring down until you're able to get these clips on there. It might be easier to stick this thing in your vise, but you want to be very careful not to see if I can get this in frame. You want to be careful not to lose the spring, because these little plastic clips here, like I said, they're not very big. You want to hang on to it. The other one. Before you let go of anything, make sure that it's in there. There you go. And that is assembled. And of course, we're going to move on to the safety block now. And that is this little jewel. You can go ahead and pull that spring off if you like. And again, what you're trying to do is you're trying to make this area here just as smooth as silk, so that when this part here comes back, because you're also going to be polishing on this part here, you want that transition to be nice and smooth, so that the trigger pull will be nice and smooth. Now on this one here, I'm going to take a little different approach. Instead of using a stone, I'm going to use this polishing cloth. We're going to leave that aside, and we're just going to take your little plunger and run it back and forth on that polishing cloth. Try to give it a nice shiny luster. There is a coating on these that you don't really want to take off. On the firing pin itself, on the disconnector, you really were kind of forced to if you're gonna smooth that up at all. And with not too much work, using that Miracle polishing cloth, get a nice shiny appearance. Whoop, can't get that in there. And you can see what the end of that thing looks like. See how shiny that is? And then we can go ahead and reassemble the slide. Alright, and here's your slide. Go ahead and take and put your spring back inside here. Give it a little push. Then I'm going to go ahead and take some Militech 1. Y'all know I like this stuff. And I'm going to give this firing pin a few drops before I install it. Make sure it gets in there and works on that firing pin. Of course, give your plunger a few drops here too, just a little drop or two. And we're going to take that plunger, ease it down in the hole. And of course, you want to check your plunger for function, and you should be spring loaded like that. Then we're going to go ahead and put the extractor back in here. And the extractor, you got a little plunger right here that goes towards the back. Put it there and it'll drop in. Continually check everything to make sure that it functions. And then we're going to take the plunger. As a matter of fact, before I put this plunger back in here, I'm going to go ahead and polish this plunger as well. Give it a quick polish. I'm not going to go overboard with this. All we're doing is just kind of smoothing it up a little bit to make sure that it got a little bit of a luster. And there it goes. It don't look a whole lot different than before, but now it's a little shinier. Now the plastic part right here on your spring goes towards the back. Whoops. Go ahead and push it on so that your plunger looks like that. And I'm going to give this one a little dot of oil as well. Take your finger and rub it. And then this part here goes into the small location right there. Of course, then you're going to take your firing pin assembly. You're going to go ahead and drop it in, just like so. And this right here is what I was telling you guys about before. This is the custom slide plate. I ordered this from a place called Laser's Edge Studios. They're on eBay, and you can actually have custom ones made. If you can't see what that says, if anybody knows what a Glock 30 is, you know that that's a 45 ACP. So it says 1911, question mark, suck my Glock. Cute little thing that picked up. It was something I just kind of come up with. Now to go ahead and install this, you're going to go ahead and start it into the little groove like this, and then you're going to take a screwdriver. You're just going to depress this plastic piece right here until it slides up like that. And then you also take this other little plunger carefully push it back. Make sure you have clearance. Carefully push it back down until it locks in. And there it is. It's done. And the slide is finished. It's had the trigger job done to it, and now we're going to move on to the frame. Now we're going to break down this frame. Now, of course, you're going to need to remove these pins so that you can get the chassis and stuff out. Well, actually, this doesn't have a chassis. Just remove the pins so that you can get the internal workings of it out. And of course, take a small punch. You can go ahead and come into this one back here. This is plastic. You just ease it out. I'm going to set all these parts up here in front of me. You also got this one right here that you should be able to push out pretty easy. Use a little bigger punch here. Maybe not. Might need to tap on it a little bit. There it comes. Let's see. Get my little wooden blocks here. That's what I got them there for. Go ahead and pull that pin. There you go. Now, of course, this trigger pin can be a little bit tricky. In order to get that out, you're going to use a little bit larger punch, and you're going to have to manipulate this slide stop just a little bit. Just give it a little force, and there you go. Wiggle it back and forth a little bit, and once you get the pin moving, ease it on out. And it comes right out just like that. Then once you go ahead and pull your punch out, and your slide stop can be removed, then we're going to take and remove this metal piece right here. We don't need to do anything with that. We're going to set that aside. Now the whole trigger mechanism, assembly, and everything can come out. Now the receiver is the frame is essentially stripped down to nothing at this point. And we're not going to do anything else with that. We've already put the longer takedown lever, so we're done at that point. We're going to set it aside, and we're going to concentrate on these components here. Now, of course, to take the transfer bar here loose from the block right here, all you do is you're going to take it and pull it out and kind of give it a little rock. And it'll come out like that, and then you'll see the spring. Then you're just going to hold on to your spring there and take it loose. All right, just like the striker, we're going to start polishing this this transfer bar right here, and we're going to do that with a stone. You're going to start right here and make sure that you get it right on the right there. All you're doing is just polishing. You're not grinding it. You're not removing a whole lot of metal. Just making sure you get a nice polish. When you're done with that, you're also going to polish this area right here, as well as this area right here. This is the spot right here that actually contacts the disconnector, or not the disconnector, but the firing pin safety block. It contacts here. This portion of it here contacts that portion there and pops that up. So we need to make sure that all those areas are polished and shiny. Alright, I'm just finishing polishing that spot there, and I don't know if it's going to show up, but you can see how shiny that is right there. That's what we're looking for. Now we're going to move on to this area here, and we're going to go ahead and work on this spot here and kind of polish that up a little bit. Okay, I've got this area right here polished. Also polish that spot there, and also this little crown. Another place that you're going to want to polish up really shiny is this little area right here, because this part actually rubs against this part here. It's going to be inside there like that, and you can see where this part right here is going to ride over that area there. So you want this area here to be smooth, and you want that area there to be smooth. And we're also going to polish this little link as well. I'll go ahead and finish polishing this thing up and show that to you. Okay, with just a little bit of effort, it takes a few minutes to get it all polished out. But you can see that this transfer bar is coming out quite nicely. I got it pretty much all polished, and I'm going to give it a little buff here, and that'll be completed. Alright, after giving it a little buff, that's how it looks. And that's what you want your transfer bar to look like. See how shiny it is? And then we're going to move over to this little spring link right here. And it's the same thing. You would just want to make sure that you polish all of the contact surfaces on it. Contact surfaces on this, of course, is this little catch right here, and also this area right here. So you want to make sure that this area, this portion is as shiny as you can get it. Accomplish that, and we'll take this little wooden block and wrap this polishing cloth around this. And you can get these, again, these little polishing cloths, you can get these on eBay. They only run a few bucks. But for this kind of work, they're absolutely a must. Try to get a good thing on there and just give it a little rub. And it ain't gonna be long. You can see right there, just that quick, it's gotten pretty shiny. I'm gonna work on this a little bit now. Okay, and like the transfer bar, after a little work and a little light buff, you can get them coming out pretty nice. Get an idea of that. And that's what you want that to look like. And we're going to go ahead and move on to the reassembly. And I'm going to pan down so you guys can see this. Reassembly is pretty much straightforward reverse of what you started with. You're going to take your spring tension bar, and that's going to be located right here. You want this little point to be, this little point is going to be heading towards the front of the gun. You push this down, and you can see that, see where it rides. And you can see that gives it a little spring tension there. Then comes the part of reassembling the trigger assembly. You're going to take and hook this up underneath here, like that. Rotate this around, just like that. You're going to have it in that position like this. Spring attached, you're going to take and pull it straight back and ease it into that area right there. And that's it. That part's installed. And you can see where that part right there is going to ride against that spring. That's why you want that real shiny. I'm going to go ahead and put a drop of Militech right here, where this contact point is right here. Make sure that there's a little spot of oil right there. And we're going to go ahead and set this thing down inside the gun, just like we took it out. It sets down there just like that. Then we can take the smallest of the 3 pins, and we can go ahead and push that pin in right there. Take your punch, center that pin up. Like so. Then you're going to take this portion here, go ahead and drop it in, like that. And then we're going to go in and install the pins. Next is going to be the trigger pin. And we're going to go ahead and take this slide stop. We're going to slide this slide stop inside here. And that slide stop has also got to line up with the trigger pin. And we're going to take the trigger pin. And the trigger pin is the largest one with a little notch in it right there. You're going to ease that into the spot. Like that. Last but not least is this last pin. And this one's a little bit of a trick. You're going to go ahead and slide it into position. And then you'll notice that you've got a spring right here. It's located right here. you want to push that spring down so that the pin will go underneath the spring. I'm going to try to do this in frame because it's a little difficult, but you push that little spring down, then ease the pin in. There it goes. And the spring goes underneath that pin. Then I'm going to go ahead and tap it in place. Make sure that it's centered up. And that looks like it is. There you go. Now that I'm at this point here, let's say that you want to drop the trigger weight. One way that you can do that is this little spring that we disconnected right here. The way this Glock works is depending on that spring tension and also this spring bar that we polished. That spring bar, you can get a lighter one, which will give you a lighter spring pull, and you can also get an increased pull on the spring here, which will actually, the way this thing works, you can see that the trigger has been reset, and that spring there will actually be a heavier duty spring, which will counteract the striker spring and make the trigger a little softer to pull. But on this one, all we did was polishing. So we'll go ahead and finish putting it together, lube everything up, and we'll check the trigger pull and see if it made any difference. Now I'm going to go ahead and put a couple of drops of oil. I'm going to go ahead and put one right there on the striker, and we're going to put a little bit just on the trigger pin right there so that it operates smoothly. And look for any contact points that it's going to need a little bit of lube. You don't take much. And there you go. We can go ahead and install the slide on it now. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and assemble the slide. Put your barrel in there. Then we're going to take the recoil spring. We're going to drop it in. Like so. We're going to go ahead and slide that on until it clicks. Check the function. Oh, that's a lot nice. That is real nice. And then we're going to go ahead and I'm going to lock it up in this vise and check the trigger pull. I went ahead and locked this thing up in my vise, and again with the wood jaws, I can go ahead and reset the trigger fairly easy. I'm going to go ahead and do a pull on it and see if we made any progress. We may not have made any difference in the actual pull weight, but it's certainly a lot smoother than it was before we started. Oh, check that out. Remember what it was breaking at before? It was breaking at about 6.5 pounds, and just polishing the components, we were able to now get it down to 5.12. Now, the original factory trigger was supposed to be set at 5.5, but we also found that it was quite inconsistent with what the factory standards were. It was actually about 6.5 pounds. But we were able to drop it almost a pound just by polishing it. And you can notice it whenever you go to pull the trigger. It's so much smoother and slick. It's like glass. Hope you enjoyed this video, and don't be afraid to break down your Glock and do a trigger job on it. They're fairly simple and easy to do. Thank you for watching.